Hello everyone, Mariko, residential realtor with the Bridgewell Real Estate Group, and welcome back to the Bridgewell Group YouTube channel where I talk about all things real estate. And in today's video, I am going to be breaking down deposits in real estate. This is a very important topic for anybody that's looking to purchase, but will also be relevant for people that are looking to sell and buy, or even just sellers that are looking to learn more about the offer process when they list their home. And with regards to deposits, this is going to be more specific to my area, which is the Greater Vancouver and Fraser Valley regions of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. But it will also be relevant to other parts of BC and Canada, but just keep in mind to double check with your local area as to what deposit standards are more normal for you. If you haven't been here before, please make sure to subscribe for all things real estate. But for now, let's just get into it. So it's obviously important to start the video off by explaining what the deposit actually is. So first of all, the deposit is going to be given for a real estate purchase on behalf of the buyer to secure the property that the seller is selling. So the deposit can essentially be seen as good faith money to secure that property. Now, the deposit and the down payment are two drastically different things, although they are intertwined. And I have a whole other video on deposit versus down payment, but very simply, your deposit forms a part of your down payment. The deposit, as I said, is that good faith money, and so the timing of the deposit and the down payment are also quite different because the deposit gets put down as a deposit to secure the purchase, whereas the total down payment or the remainder of the down payment is due at completion when the property and the title actually transfers from the seller to the buyer. So there's differences in the amount, there's differences in the timing, obviously what they are, and then who holds that deposit versus the down payment. So getting into who holds the deposit, now this is a very important part of understanding deposits, but it's also important to understand that it can be drafted differently depending on the contract. So first and foremost, you always want to figure out who is holding the deposit and how that contract is drafted. Now, there's differences between resale properties and pre-sale properties. Like pre-sales would be like a developer sold unit, for example. With pre-sales, it's a completely different ballgame, but generally it's going to be held by the developer's lawyer in trust. If we're dealing with more of like a standard resale situation, it's typically held by the buyer's agent, so the buyer's realtor's brokerage in trust. The trust portion is very important. That money can't be used for some other thing related to the brokerage. The brokerage is essentially acting as a stakeholder and is a neutral party for the buyer and the seller as a part of this real estate transaction. So this is very important to understand because as a seller, you have to know that you are not getting that deposit directly to you. So when your home is sold, so subjects removed, deposit is handed in, that deposit is not coming to you. It's going in a standard situation to the buyer's agent's brokerage in trust. What does this mean? It means that if you are listing your property and then simultaneously trying to buy something as soon as your subjects are removed on your home, you cannot use the deposit for your sale to go towards the deposit for your purchase. So if you are listing and buying at the same time, just keep in mind that you are going to need to have separate funds available, whether that be a line of credit, cash, TFSA, maybe deposit financing, if you do need that money for your deposit to purchase a home. As you cannot pull out of equity, you don't get any of the sale funds until your home actually completes. So how much are deposits in real estate? First, you have to go back to, is this a pre-sale purchase or a resale purchase? So in pre-sales, the developer is always the one that writes the contract, and they will have a set deposit schedule that's determined by them. You can see as low as 5%. It's really common to see a schedule somewhere between 10 to 20%. And again, it's usually over a period of time, say 6 to 18 months, something like that. But again, just refer to the pre-sale contract because the developer always sets that. Now, in a resale situation, the buyer's agent is typically the one that drafts that contract. And there is no set minimum regulated amount like a minimum down payment that's regulated by the federal government. With deposits, it's just a general expected amount, and that is typically in the Greater Vancouver area about 5% of the purchase price. And so that 5% is typically drafted and offered on the initial amount. The seller on the offer of contract of purchase and sale can counter every single time the price is countered as well. Generally, that doesn't really happen, so most of the time it ends up being 5% of the initial offered price, but it could be that it ends up being 5% of the final purchase price. General rule of thumb though is that if you're looking within a certain budget, just make sure that you have 5% of liquid funds available for the deposit when you do need it. So when is the deposit due? Again, in a resale situation, the buyer's agent is going to be drafting this contract. So it completely depends on the contract. And that's same with pre-sales. It also depends on the contract. So whenever you're figuring out when deposits are due, always refer back to the contract. Now, in terms of resale, like standard timelines, it comes back to, is this subject free? Is this with subjects? And all of that jazz. So let's just get into a timeline example. So getting into the example itself, as you can see, I've written up a week here from one Monday through the week, Saturday, Sunday, and then the following Monday. And I've got an example of with subjects and then subject free. So let's start with the accepted offer with subjects, right? So when we get an accepted offer, as I said, the home typically isn't going to be sold until subjects are removed and the deposit is handed in. So on the contract of purchase and sale that you see here in the Greater Vancouver area, there will be a section that says that the deposit is due within 24 hours of acceptance unless written otherwise. And so it's very normal for realtors to then add a little section there that says that the deposit is going to be due upon or within 24 hours of subject removal. So in this situation, I've drafted a 7-day long subject removal period. So let's say you want to make sure your financing is good to go. You do your inspection and it's good to go. You're happy with the documents, it's good to go. You say, yep, Mariko, check, 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 check. I'm happy with everything. My subjects are satisfied and I'm happy with it. So now I'm going to proceed with handing in this deposit. And as I said, this could be upon subject removal or within 24 hours of subject removal, depending on how that contract is drafted. So this is a very normal way to see it. Now, if we are subject free, it's a completely different story. So the old way of subject free was essentially just I'm committing to this property, here's my deposit, no harm, no foul. The government has changed that and they now have a 3-day mandatory homebuyer rescission period on all offers, where once you have that accepted offer, even if you are subject free, you still have 3 full business days to decide whether or not you're moving forward with that purchase. Now, this is called the cooling off period. It's called the homebuyer rescission period, whatever. It's all synonymous, okay? So in this example, if you have an accepted offer that's subject free on Monday, then you would have all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, and all day Thursday. Thursday, 11:59 p.m., you have to decide whether or not you're moving forward with this purchase. Now, big thing with subject free is that there is a penalty of 0.25% of the purchase price if you do not move forward. So if you collapse the deal within the 3-day rescission period, you owe the seller 0.25% of the purchase price. Again, that's another video, but just a quick little note there. So when we are dealing with subject-free offers, there's 2 different ways that this can be drafted. There can be the deposit is due at acceptance, or it could be that the deposit is due upon or within 24 hours of rescission. So you can kind of see a trend here that it's either upon or within 24 hours of acceptance, upon or within 24 hours of rescission, or upon or within 24 hours of subject removal. And the way that the contract is drafted, they all have different risk preferences, right? So when the deposit is given with an accepted offer subject free, if this person backs out, then they owe 25% of the, or 0.25% of the purchase price automatically from this deposit gets paid to the seller if the buyer collapses. In the event that the buyer collapses with a subject free offer here, but the deposit isn't given, then the seller needs to chase down that buyer for that 0.25% of the purchase price. So you can see how for a seller, this would be better than this. Then lastly, if we have subjects, right, there is no 0.25% of the purchase price collateral to be given to the seller if you have subjects. So this is the one that protects the buyer the most, even though this one is the one that the seller is going to like the most. So here you have this time frame and you have the subject removal, and because the deposit isn't given until after subject removal, that means that if you cannot get financing, you haven't given your deposit yet, so you don't lose anything. So if you have subjects on a contract and you are collapsing the property or backing out of that property with regards to the subjects that you have listed, then you do not lose your deposit because you typically have not given your deposit yet. So long story short, the timing of the deposit and whether or not you are going to lose any portion of your deposit really depends on how the contract is drafted. So make sure you're working closely with a realtor, whether you're a buyer or a seller, to understand what your obligations are and when the deposit is going to be dealt with and how it is going to be dealt with. But I do think that it is important to just clarify again, like, what it means to be sold and when you could potentially lose your deposit. So let's say, for example, you went through and you said, yep, I'm happy with everything, I'm happy with all of my subjects, and I'm gonna be removing. And you sign the subject removal form and you hand in your deposit, right? At this point in time, the home is considered sold. And we go back to that nature of what a deposit is. It's good faith money, right? That you're saying, yes, I'm putting this money down to secure the property as I wait for completion, right? And completion, which is the day that title transfers and the names essentially are moved from the seller to the buyer, happens a lot of the time much later, right? It could be a couple weeks, but on average, it's generally about 2 to 3 months later. So that's why you have that good faith money, because you're securing the property until completion, right? Now, if we said, yeah, we're good with this, yeah, we're good with this, and then all of a sudden, 1 month down the road, you say, oh, actually, I have no intention of completing, or I'm not able to complete, or I changed my mind, like, you cannot do that. So this would be a situation where if after you've removed subjects, after you've handed in your deposit, after you've passed this 3-day rescission period and handed in your deposit and you've committed to the property, if you back out then and you don't complete, then you definitely are at risk to lose your deposit. So that's just an important thing to clarify, like when the property is sold. Again, going back to the nature of the deposit and just understanding the logistics of when you would owe compensation, when you would lose it, or when you would not. Thank you so much for watching this video on deposits in real estate. We also have a whole separate video on deposit versus down payment and a lot of other buyer resources. So definitely make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out those videos, like, comment on this video for future videos that you want to see, and of course explore our channel and also our Bridgewell group vlog for more information like this. If you are looking to buy or sell or invest in the Greater Vancouver, Fraser Valley markets, definitely feel free to reach out to myself and my team. Again, my name is Mariko Berg and I'm a residential realtor with my team, Bridgewell Real Estate Group. And we help with all things just like this. So definitely feel free to reach out to us if you are looking to buy or sell. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.